Time to look at the newspaper headlines, and I have with me in the studio Jide Ologun, lawyer and social development advocate. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Talk to us. What has been your observation with the level of lockdown? What was it like coming here this morning?
Yeah, for me, it was free. But it was not the same yesterday when I was trying to go to another media organization. The Lagos-Ibadan Express Road at the Baga end was blocked.
The barricade.
Obviously, those traveling into Lagos and those traveling out of Lagos. But interestingly, the law enforcement agents at a point had to confer to allow the tankers to drive in and try and manage that crisis. So I thought it was perhaps because being the first day, people were not used to the order. So I expect that it should get better by the day. But coming here today, I didn't encounter any
of that
challenge.
All right. All right, let's head straight to the papers now. And I begin with the Daily Times. Coronavirus. Federal government security chiefs meet to review 14-day lockdown protocols. Intensifies contact tracing of persons infected with COVID-19. Expands testing sites to Ibadan, Abakaliki as Nigeria records 4 new cases. To the front page of the News Direct, COVID-19, $20 per barrel oil price threatens 2020 budget. To the front page of the Blueprint, COVID-19 lockdown, our kids will die of hunger, market women cry out. We'll be looking at that story shortly. To the front page of the Daily Trust, COVID-19, only 169 ventilators in 16 states. Numbers are known in Federal Capital Territory, Lagos, 10,000 required nationwide, experts. No patient in Lagos needs ventilator. And finally, on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, lockdown, federal government to roll out more palliatives for vulnerable Nigerians. All right, let's look at this story on the front page of the Blueprint, as well as look at the story on the front page of the Leadership paper this morning. When you hear what a lot of persons were saying, even since the government, that when there was a hint about going to be that there was going to be a lockdown, a lot of persons were, agitated, saying that how do people who rely on daily wages, how are they going to survive? And then when the president made his statement, he talked about, making palliatives for the vulnerable. So also Lagos State government talking about making staple food available to about 200,000 homes. And we see pictures everywhere seeing how food is being distributed. But when you look at other countries around the world, I wonder what really the disparity or what exactly we are not doing right, because the government is saying we are going to create more palliatives, but it doesn't seem to be enough.
I think it's the point we are. There is a difference between a developing country and a developed country. For example, you check other climes, you monitor how these materials are being delivered, perhaps at the doorstep through data engagements, without physical contacts like we have observed in our country. And you see people rushing for the food. But I should at this point commend the Lagos State government. I know the Lagos State government is engaging data. We've all heard about this Lagos State Residence Registration.
Yes.
And I think the government is trying to reach out right now to a group of persons above a particular age, and that is why we are advising that the government should take data very, very seriously. The future economy revolves around it. And the federal government also has been informing us that they are rolling out palliatives and also engaging on data, that they collated during the trader money, the end power and stuff like that. So right now, COVID-19 has come to challenge the fabric of our governance system. And it's all about managing resources and reaching out to the people. So I expect that we learn the lessons we need to learn from here, because if you look at the real essence of quarantine, A quarantine itself emanated in 1423 in Venice, when she bring merchants nearby and they come with diseases. And the government said, no, you have to hang on the sea for 40 days. Quaranta means 40. Giorni means days. So for 40 days, to be sure that you are free of infection and you can come in. And so it's been adopted now. So it's really to isolate those who are infected or may infect. But right now, we're expanding it at a broader level. And that is why some constitutional law lawyers are saying no. According to Section 41 of the Nigerian Constitution, you may be dealing with a disease, but you cannot infringe on the freedom of movement of the people. But under Section 305, the president can declare a state of emergency. So there are technicalities involved here. But we are managing crisis here. And it's a good thing that the government has tried to prevent the further spread of the COVID-19 in our country. And talking about palliative, I want to advise that we move from palliative to substantive care for the people.
What will that be?
It's in Section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that the government should manage the economy in a way that we have sustainable development, and that the government should provide maximum welfare for the people. All right? Even it's that should make the people happy. Engage our resources, make provisions. Right now, thank God that the government has prevented the discourse from increasing the electricity tariff. Yes. What could have happened in the midst of a crisis like this, even though that has been on before now, it was to take effect on April 1. So I think COVID-19 is now making our leaders in court to listen to the people. You see, we need to build a structure that cares. You go to Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. It stipulates that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. So here we are now talking about welfare, because as it has been rightly disclosed, many Nigerians earn daily wage. So they must go out to make a living. But thank God for the spirit of love that has been prompted in our society. The neighbors are helping one another and philanthropists are donating. Even senators have offered 50%
of their
salaries. A governor in a state offered his salary from May 29, 2019 till date. You see, so people are giving. And the big question now is that if this is happening in times of crisis, is it also possible in times of safety? For example, the markets that are being created now to bring resources close to the people, can we incorporate it into the governance policy that going forward after COVID-19, we bring welfare closer to the people? I even read that the Mile 12 market is trying to embark on mobile distribution network. So we need to upscale. The whole essence of resources and resourcefulness is to care for the people. Like you have seen now, our cars are not complaining, our roads are not complaining. The most affected, the most vulnerable are the human beings. And I want to advise the government to leverage on the reputational opportunity here. There has been an impression that if the threat is against the poor, the government is not bothered. Now that the threat appears to be more towards the high and mighty, they are interested, twisting the policies to ensure that we overcome COVID. Whatever it is, I need to emphasize the fact that God has blessed us with resources to enjoy our stay here on earth. And if we follow that pattern, very soon we join the developed countries. So that is the disparity.
All right, we can only hope that the lessons are learned after now that the necessary steps are taken.
If the lessons are not learned, nature will take its course.
All right.
I mean, in history, leaders who don't care for the people end in particular ways. There are no two ways about it. It's an order. God says we should replenish the earth.
Okay.
In Genesis 1:28. So anything contrary to that will not end well.
All right,
And for you to be
let's
on the
leave
golden side of
conversation here
history,
now.
do the right thing,
All right.
care for the people.
Thank you, Jide Ologun, for speaking with us on the newspaper review this morning.
God bless.
Now it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio Jide Ologun, lawyer and social development advocate. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome.
All right, let's begin with the Daily Times. Coronavirus, federal government security chiefs meet to review 14-day lockdown protocols. Intensifies contact tracing of persons infected with COVID-19. Expands testing sites to Ibadan, Abakaliki, and as Nigerians record 4 new cases. News Direct now, COVID-19, $20 per barrel oil price threatens 2020 budget. We'll be looking at that story shortly. To the front page of the blueprint, COVID-19 lockdown, our kids will die of hunger, market women cry out. To the Daily Trust, COVID-19, only 169 ventilators in 16 states. Numbers unknown in the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos. 10,000 required nationwide experts. No patient in Lagos needs ventilator. And finally, on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, lockdown, the federal government to roll out more palliatives for vulnerable Nigerians. And like I said earlier, we'll be looking at the story on the front page of the News Direct, talking about the oil price, the drop in oil prices to $20 per barrel. How much of a threat is this to the 2020 budget? How concerning is this continuous drop in oil price for you?
We have even been warned that if this is sustained, we may relapse into another economic recession. And some are even asking, are we out of the recession that was in place? And you look at the fact that the 2020 budget, the benchmark was about $57 per barrel. And now it's around $20. It's really, really critical. And you notice also that there is an economic war between Russia and Saudi Arabia, flooding the market with excess crude oil, and they are not repentant about it. And we have an oil glut as it is. And this is a time we should test the quality of our governance system. I read a report that in 2018, we made about $32.63 billion from oil and gas. But I don't want to disturb your mind with how much of it we spent on repairing and maintaining the refineries that are not functioning maximally. And there was also a report that we spent 11 trillion naira in 6 years on subsidy, otherwise called under recovery. And now we are in the season of over recovery because of the shake-up in the oil price at the global market. And that is why some Nigerians are saying, as we appreciate the reduction of the pump price to 125 naira, which is now to go to 123.5 or so, that it should even drop
further
to about 46 naira per liter. If you check the fact that when it was increased in 2016 from 87 naira 50 kobo, it was increased to 145 naira and 143 with NNPC. So these are issues coming to test the strength of our economy. And the National Assembly is reacting by seeing how our budget can be adjusted. My advice is that we should look forward. The elders have a saying that if the young man falls, he looks forward. If the elder falls, he looks backward. So as we're looking for, let's look
forward at this point, seeing the situation on the ground now. There is a pandemic and the government is also trying to ensure there's palliatives in place. There's so much going on even for the government.
The pandemic will go. I can assure you, go and check the economy of China after this COVID-19. You'll be amazed at the promotion that nation would have gained. And that's what we are saying, because there was a foundation of strength before the shock came, before the emergency. Let me quickly recall what Sheikh Zayed of the UAE, the modern UAE, the founder, he said that wealth is not money, but developing people. So he decided to engage the oil wealth of the UAE to develop the people and by extension, develop infrastructure and attract prosperity into that region. In fact, right now, whilst the world is running helter-skelter on COVID-19, the UAE is saying they are fully armed to deal with COVID-19. So what we need to realize now is that the resources of this nation must be wisely engaged. I read with delight that NNPC is donating ventilators. I think JAMB also is donating ventilators. Where were they? In 2015, NNPC, when Baru was the GMD and with the Minister of State also, they promised to migrate into electricity production. Have we done that? There is a fresh promise now. You see, so if you get serious and resourceful with your resources, you will benefit from it. But obviously, from the way the resources of the country have been managed, we must really, embark on a new curve entirely if we want to enjoy the goodness of this land. And these are some of the challenges that will come and test the quality of governance that we have. Like we said, there was a time we were driving an advocacy, can we look at the salaries and allowances of some key officials, and it was like, hey, keep quiet there. But now they are donating because there is a threat in town. And whether we like it or not, when COVID-19 is gone, a new narrative will be established, and the government will have a huge assignment in repositioning the economy.
And in repositioning the economy, the government has been looking at diversifying the economy. As it stands now, how would you expect the government to reposition the economy, taking up the diversification agenda?
It's all about implementation. I've asked a question. I am diversifying into agriculture, and I cannot prevent herders who are killing farmers. How do we achieve that? I read a report that around Lagos and Ogun State now, tomatoes and perishable items are getting destroyed because we are at the primary level of the agro business. If we have industrialized a bit, we can process these products, preserve them like it is done in some other countries, then we will not record that level of wastage. We need to get serious, and that is what we are saying. Everybody will benefit. And right now, I appreciate what the president has done. He has appointed the vice president to head a committee to reposition the economy. There is a 7-man panel there. We have the governor of CBN, we have the GMD of the NNPC, we have a minister of budget and finance, budget and planning, and let them all and these are key ministries and departments and agencies that we have in the country.
So what would you expect to see from them?
Implement. The problem of Nigeria is not policy document, but implementation. And I am saying, it's my personal opinion and I own it, that if we allow love to drive the governance process of Nigeria, where we see all of us belonging to this country, like COVID-19 is bringing us together now, and we stop this regional muscle flexing and competition and trying to suppress. It's obvious, even though we deny it. We will rise. I've said it. Look at America. United States of America, the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates. I look forward to a time when we have the United States of Nigeria, where the development of Maiduguri is as important as the development of Enugu. It's as important as the development of Akwa Ibom, of Ondo State, everywhere. The resources are there. There is no state in Nigeria that is not blessed by huge resources. And we block all the loopholes. I don't want to frighten you. Do you know that before the COVID-19 visited Nigeria, Togo, Benin Republic, and Niger were owing Nigeria about 30 billion naira on electricity supply. And yet in Nigeria, the supply is not there. We constantly have this argument between the GENCOs, the producers, the transmitters, and the distributors. Who wants this argument? Let's industrialize these nations, economy, you know, industries are crashing down, unemployment. You see, even the whole world is shaking. If you know the number of those who have filed for unemployment in the US, you'll be amazed. In fact, right now in the US, the pump price of gas has come to around $2. So the world is shifting to see how the people can be supported. So if we come out of COVID-19 with that determination to implement policies that have been incorporated into our constitution in ensuring the security and welfare of citizens, I can tell you in no distant a time, Nigeria will be on the peak of the mountain in terms of prosperity, in terms of development. And that is our dream.
All right, Jude Ologun, we'll leave the discussion here now. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
God bless Nigeria.
Well, it's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio Jude Ologun, lawyer and social development advocate. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome.
All right, we head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Times. Coronavirus, federal government security chiefs meet to review 14-day lockdown protocols. Intensifies contact tracing of persons infected with COVID-19. Expands testing sites to Ibadan, Abakaliki, as Nigeria records 4 new cases. And then we move to the front page of the News Direct. COVID-19, $20 per barrel oil price threatens 2020 budget. To the blueprint now, COVID-19 lockdown. Our kids will die of hunger. Market women cry out. To the Daily Trust, COVID-19, only 169 ventilators in 16 states. Numbers are known in Federal Capital Territory, Lagos. 10,000 required nationwide, experts. No patient in Lagos needs a ventilator. And finally, on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, lockdown, federal government to roll out more palliatives for vulnerable Nigerians. I'd like for us to look at the story on the front page of the Daily Trust, which is talking about ventilators, about only 169 ventilators available in 16 states. And recently, when we spoke with the NCDC spokesperson, she told us that they had about 25,000 testing kits, and so far they have done about 600 to 1,000 tests. And when you look at the fact that we are still in search of about 6,000 contacts, we're still trying to trace these contacts, and we are looking at a population of about 200 million. Not saying that everyone is infected, but then when you look at all of this, are we really making progress? Are we moving in the right direction?
To answer your question directly, we are. We only need to improve, because right now COVID-19 has compelled us to start engaging. And talking about whether the facilities we have on ground will be enough to cope with the situation, I think it's just characteristic of us that we are reactive as a people. I recall that when I got the news that the chief of staff, who was claimed to have tested positive, was flown to Lagos for medical attention, my mind went back to when the First Lady
raised an alarm
that
on the
state
state of the
clinic was not equipped many years ago, and we have not considered it necessary or relevant to respond to that. And that is what happens when we are reactive. So I think right now the vulnerability of the system is on the front burner. This time around, because it's not the poor, in quotes, that are the targeted victims. It appears now that the high and mighty are the ones that are romancing with coronavirus. So it has pleased them to respond. And we are just saying, like I've always said, that the security of one is the security of all. A wise man said, it never hurts to be proactive. So when we bring the mindset of let's be equipped, irrespective of where we are, it will help us when the days of trouble come. And that brings us to 2 concepts in life. You can either live by default or by strategy. And strategy itself is a long-term plan for success. So what plans have we had? What have we put in place? You saw what happened in China, even where it allegedly started. Immediately, the government rose up to put things in place to combat it. In fact, right now, I think America has more cases
now,
than
yes.
China where it started. So it's a big lesson for
we're
us
seeing
as a
the
people.
same kind of response being replicated in Lagos State, for instance, and across other states. So we are seeing some level of response. But the concern now is the fact that there are donations being made, and Nigerians are raising an eyebrow as to perhaps do not give us the money, buy this equipment that we need.
Because the trust capital is not there. You see, a lot of money has been donated. In fact, there is already a report that those donations should be probed. Those who will handle them.
Yes.
And many are saying, are you even involving the medical practitioners in the management of this money? But I have said it, whoever tampers with whatever is donated now is placing a curse upon himself or herself.
Really?
Yes. This is a troubling time. This is a time that we need to fear God. So, and again, going back to the government, I'm tired of having incidents of corruption. If you look at Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it places an obligation on the government to abolish all forms of corruption and abuse of office. So we need to put machinery in place. But it may amaze you that perhaps those who should drive that process are themselves corrupt. And corruption is what has brought us to where we are now. But by and large, we want to appreciate how the states are rising up to combat this
Virus.
global pandemic,
Yeah.
that has not even gotten to the state of epidemic in Nigeria, because as we sit here in the studio, I think we've only recorded 2 deaths, and we really condole with the families of.
But we see the cases
victims
rising on a daily, and some persons are saying perhaps this 14 days might be extended.
Those are the people who are even tested. We are talking about contact persons.
Tracing,
so
yes,
we need to really work on our database as a people. But it's not as if we don't have a foundational database, but perhaps they are only relevant in collecting revenue and for political reasons. Right now, we know that governance can succeed when we have database and we can relate with the people at that level, because right now, governors are beginning to have teleconference, even the vice president, and the game is changing. So we need to scale up and see how we can make the society better. And in some states, for example, the Edo State governor is, on top of the game. We can see what the Lagos State governor is doing. In fact, recently, some Americans flew in from the US to Lagos. They were screened, and they flew to Cross River State. But the governor, Professor Benedict Ayade, did not allow them to enter Calabar, because Calabar is on lockdown. And he expressed his argument that you claim these people work for NNPC, that there is no major NNPC installation in Cross River State. So what are they coming to do? So that is at the preventive level. And as at this point in time, there is no case in that state. So, and when you now compare that with what we heard concerning Kano, that some young ones came out saying there is no coronavirus. So you need to do a lot right now to prevent our having an epidemic. By the special grace of God, we are on top of this game for now, and good enough. Many are being cured, and we just must commend the efforts of the government. But going forward, we need a strong governance system, and I refer us back to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations that will be evaluated by year 2030. There are about 17 goals. We need to go there, and there is room for partnership. Right now, from Italy and from across the world, victims are being flown to Germany. Germany is almost over-equipped, and they are tending to them. In fact, right now, the UK and some other countries have even brought down the sanction against Iran, to send some relief materials to Iran. So the world is coming together to fight a pandemic. But the strength of your governance system will be tested not just during this COVID-19 crisis management, but after, because economically, look at those who will not be able to go to engage their businesses. Look at market women already screaming that their children will die of hunger, and we pray your children will not die of hunger. In a way, God will provide. And we are calling on everyone, let's come on board, support one another so that we can pass through this phase, because I know that God will roll COVID-19 away. And with our wise, practical engagement, particularly in cooperating with the government directives, it shall also come to pass. But we pray that as a nation we come out of this stronger and better. We can only hope. Thank you, Barrister Jide Olugun, for your time on the newspaper review here on TVC Breakfast. God bless Nigeria.